Welcome to Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. Your Day Weather Podcast is being brought to you by Cowboy State Daily, Wyoming's news authority. Visit them at cowboystatedaily.com and on their Facebook page. As we go through today, it's going to be a lot like yesterday. Pretty mild temperatures. Mild Pacific air is working its way into the region. So it's going to be mild, but the second half of the week across the west is going to be a little bit unsettled as a disorganized trough comes through the Rockies out of the Pacific Northwest. It's going to bring spotty precipitation in the form of rain and snow on the plains, a little bit of snow in the mountains. As we showed you yesterday, there will be a few pockets of heavier precipitation, especially in Colorado, especially central Colorado. Now, there's another storm system possibly arriving late in the weekend and early next week. We got to watch it. It is a system that has all the characteristics of being a pretty decent looking March storm, but there is a lot, and I mean a lot of disagreement in the modeling. So our confidence on next week's storm is low right now, and we'll show you why, but we're going to continue to monitor it. The weather pattern is basically in transition out of a late winter to an early spring, and this makes it really hard for long-range forecast predictions, as anytime you start to change the seasons, you really have a difficult time with the weather pattern. As it gets active, it gets a bit unstable. So a weather forecast past 4 to 5 days, kind of tricky. So take everything with a grain of salt. Today's satellite photo shows mostly clear skies and fair weather conditions again across a good chunk of the western United States, but you can see all of these clouds here. This is part of the low pressure system coming into the Pacific Northwest that's going to come in, and as we showed you yesterday, kind of come in pieces. There's another piece of the low up here, a piece of the low here, and it's going to be a couple of these systems over a 2 or 3 day period coming on through, not coalescing into one organized storm, but several smaller ones. But they will work together to bring some unsettled weather to the west. Here it is, that upper level low just coming into the Pacific Northwest coast, into British Columbia, Washington, and Oregon. And then the other one we showed you on the satellite photo there up by the Aleutians. Over the course of the next couple of days, this is how it goes. The trough comes in, not very organized, by tomorrow and into Thursday. This is by Wednesday afternoon. So we'll have low pressure coming on in, some cooler, moist Pacific air comes in. There's no real connection to Canadian air. And then we've got another low back down on here. And so that'll come on through, producing cool, cloudy conditions, areas of rain and snow. Then a little bit more of an organized system forms on the base of the trough and heads towards the Midwest. And this will be a weather maker for parts of Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa, to get some areas of rain and snow, while we'll see some areas of snow and rain back here in the Rockies. This is the next weather maker, potentially coming in late in the weekend and early next week. And we'll spend some time talking about that here in a minute. But the precipitation, this is through Friday afternoon. This is the liquid forecast if it were to fall all as rain. You can see a nice swath of moisture here for parts of the Corn Belt back into the areas of Kansas and eastern Colorado that really need it. This will be in the form of rain, and there could be a band of some heavier snow here. And then here you can see a little bit more of an enhanced area of precipitation there in eastern and central Colorado. And then back across the Pacific Northwest and the northern Rockies, it's kind of a hodgepodge of disorganized precipitation. If you were to look at the snowfall forecast, there's that snowfall forecast for parts of the Northwest Corn Belt, and then here into Colorado, parts of Wyoming, and along the Continental Divide. Now let's zoom in. So if we zoom in closer, you can see, as we showed you yesterday, the front range of Colorado along the Palmer Divide into this area right here appears to be an area where there's going to be some rain mixing with and then eventually changing to snow as we get on into Wednesday night and into Thursday, then spreading out into western areas of Kansas here. Really need the moisture here. Let's hope this comes to fruition. Elsewhere, there's areas of green and blue. It's spotty. It's not organized, but parts of Wyoming, back into Montana and Idaho and Utah, in northern New Mexico as well. We'll get into the mix with a little bit of precipitation, as well as the Pacific Northwest here, a little bit of snow in the high C areas. If we were to convert this precipitation forecast into the snowfall forecast, there you can see that little L there along the Palmer Divide. It's very much an elevation situation here where the rain will change to snow along the higher elevations of I-70, along the Palmer Divide, then right along the Front Range, but more of a rain-snow mix out on into the plains. So for you Colorado folks, you're going to want to keep an eye on this area right here as we get into late tomorrow night, and Thursday, and just enough snow, wet spring-like snow elsewhere to cause a few travel concerns. Now, this is where we get into next week's forecast, and this is where things look interesting at one moment, and then at the next moment, well, there's a lot of things we got to sort out. This is the GFS model, or this is the global forecast system that the National Weather Service puts out. It is showing a classic setup with two highs in the Pacific and the southeastern United States, and then a well-organized, deep, low-pressure system at 18,000 feet right over the Four Corners area. A classic setup to bring Gulf of Mexico moisture into the system, upslope winds along the Continental Divide, and just the right setup to bring rain, thunder, and snow as you get with these March storms. But when you start comparing the modeling, it looks a lot different. Now, this is what it would look like precipitation-wise if the GFS model with that low over the Four Corners area comes to fruition. This would basically be from late Sunday into Monday and Tuesday of next week. However, the European model has also a low, but it's further south. It's not nearly as well organized, and it's kind of split up. The energy is split up between the trough up into Canada and the trough here. It's just not as well organized, but the same basic configurations are in place. High pressure in the southeast, in the eastern Pacific, and a low near the Four Corners area. However, the precipitation that was very heavy here is nowhere to be found in the European model. The European model has much less here, more directed towards the northern Rockies, and then down here to the southern plains. So there's a remarkable contrast in the modeling. Now, the Canadian model is kind of a hybrid between the U.S. model and the European model. The same configuration. So we're looking at basically the setup that we want to have for a well-organized storm in the Central Rockies early next week, but the intensity and the organization, well, that's something that is just too far out to pin down. The Canadian model concentrates its heaviest precipitation in Kansas, Nebraska, eastern Colorado, and the Panhandles. So there is just a wide variety of solutions. Thanks for tuning into the Day Weather Podcast. We'll have more for you tomorrow. Have a great Tuesday.